Hello and welcome everybody to the final day of DreamHack Open, live from Stockholm. We are here to give you the last top 16 players remaining in this tournament and to see who can be the DreamHack champion of Stockholm, the fifth and final tour stop on the way to DreamHack Winter. Once again, I am joined by my three experts. My far left is Nathanius, the shortest of shortest Terrans. Hello, mate.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I mean, we Terrans make up for it in other ways, like winning tournaments like this. So,
Well,
well.
I don't think that's going to happen, but well said.
And thank you, Moonglade there.
Soon.
And of course, Moonglade in the white, and then, of course, next to him is the one, the only, in control. How are you doing today?
I woke up next to you, and I looked at you, and the sun was coming in through the window. We had our white sheets just kind of tangled about the two of our strewn about bodies, and I was like, today is going to be a great day.
It's going to be a great day.
It's going to be a
I
great
said that
day.
to myself as well when I rolled over and saw in control next to me. And today will be a great day. We have a lot planned for you. And of course, all this is thanks to our sponsors, HyperX, ISO, Razer, and Monster Energy. Boom.
Nice. That was really good.
Again,
really good.
guys. Thank you very much.
Great sponsors.
Beautiful sponsors. Thank you very much once again, guys. Honestly, it's very, very good of you to support DreamHack on their tour this year. But before we get into talking about what we're going to see today in the schedule and the games, let's take a closer look of what DreamHack Open really is. Sixteen world-class players have qualified to play for DreamHack Winter. Today, 4 more will join them, where we will have 20 players competing for a total prize pool of $75,000 at the end of the year. But before we even get close to that, we still have 16 players remaining. We had 96 players enter this tournament on day 1 yesterday, and day 2, only 16 remain. But 16 of the finest StarCraft 2 competitors are here to fight up for the prize pool of $25,000, and of course that top 4 position to compete at DreamHack Winter.
Let me just be honest with ourselves too. Like, a lot of times, you could take that statement you just said and it cross-apply it to just about every tournament ever. They're like, we've got 16 players, and I'll be a monkey's uncle if they're not the best in the whole world. Usually it's complete crap. Like, a lot of them aren't actually the best in the world. But this DreamHack,
It's actually true. It's actually true. This one time, it is true.
Yeah. I mean, you take Mana out of there, and it's absolutely the best. No, I love Mana.
Wow.
I hope he does well.
You took a bunch of players at the start, especially of yesterday's second and third group stage, who were desperate for WCS points. You put them all in one steel cage, and you're like, fight to the death, because only 2 players, basically, at this point, can actually enter that top 16 to go to BlizzCon.
Jaedong's still fighting for that spot.
That's right.
Been relegated to the sideline, and where he's just got to hope. What? soO devastates innovation at GSL. Some other spots too at WCS, EU, and NA guys can hop up there, can't they?
That's right. So a lot on the line for today. Let's take a look at the schedule to see what games we're going to be broadcasting and giving you here, and of course what games are to come on other community streams as well. We'll be starting the day covering 2 round of 16 games here, and then moving on to the quarterfinals, and we'll be covering every single game from the quarterfinals and
but
beyond.
Also community streams in the round of 16, right?
Right, for the other games that we will not be covering. We'll be starting here with soO versus Ryung very, very shortly, followed by Jaedong versus Classic. A massive game there for Jaedong, of course, needs to win that to qualify for BlizzCon. So a lot on the line. Great set of players, though, guys. I mean, from the top to the bottom.
Oh, my God.
Amazing lineup there. Every single game is going to be so fun to watch, so educational as well for the players out there that want to learn from the best. Yeah. This is the best.
If we had the passion of Hearthstone to start now and cast until 6 a.m. the next day, we should have broadcasted every single one of those matches. But
Yep.
the fact of the matter is, I feel like if we were to pack that much awesome into a single broadcast, you would age thrice that of Artosis, which is like 3 generations.
And I'm already in the danger zone on that one. So I think it's best.
Yeah,
that
something happened to you. Some D&D game went wrong and you
take
got
it
sped
slow.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to play versus Protoss. It's tough.
Well,
Okay, Nathaniel.
I don't think that was a joke.
I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah.
So let's start at the top then. Our first game of the day is going to be soO, the 4-time GSL finalist, one of the best Zerg players out there.
The best Zerg player in the world.
The best Zerg player in the world. Thank you very much, Moonglade.
Say that pretty definitively.
You know, he's just now 100% secured his spot at BlizzCon, going up against Ryung here, who is a player who's been around for a long, long time, was a former regular Code S Terran back in the days, has played in WCS America. You've covered a couple of games there over the years as well. But, I mean, Ryung, the faceless players. The faceless players.
Well, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
There's only one way to look at this series, though, right, guys? soO is on the way to the finals, and it's one player at a time.
Yeah.
Who the hell is going to try to stop him? Can they even come close to stopping soO from getting to the grand
First
finals?
up's Ryung, and I like it. The Banes, Total Biscuit is Lovely Life Jenna. They have an awesome house, and their system is basically, they don't just send players to tournaments willy-nilly. They have to earn that through either inter-squad practice or previous results, and Ryung's here for a reason. We did get this, we heard, I guess we didn't necessarily see it, it was on a community stream yesterday, but Jaedong tripped him up with some cheese. soO is probably not going to go that route. soO is the dominant, best Zerg, and it's probably his philosophy that says, well, it's up to you guys to trip me up. So I'm looking at Ryung as a guy who in the past we've seen have amazing TVT, and then you've always kind of got made considerations for his TVP and TVZ.
Yeah.
Let's see him prove it here. He's going to be on the big stage against the guy that's expected to go to the finals.
Against the guy who's undefeated so far in this tournament, Moonglade. Hasn't dropped a single map, has taken down Golden, Lenok, and Classic. 3 massive names, 2-0
That's
each.
actually insane.
2 Zergs.
I mean, Classic beat him in a GSL Grand Final not too long ago as well. So he's getting so many revenge kills lately, beating Zest, and now Classic. He's taking he's on another level at the moment, and it's definitely showing in this tournament. And I'm very, very worried for Ryung because we just haven't seen much of Ryung in a long time. He's been very inconsistent. He's been around the place. He was in America. He changed to Korea for a time, and then went back to America. And he hasn't found results in America, which is kind of a bad thing if you're going to come here and try and play against soO.
See, that's so misleading. People, they try to say America's like the worst WCS or something like that. Our ladder's not great. Our WCS is hell of a lot better than even Europe. It's like GSL Light is what people actually call it. It's really hard.
No, that's actually a good point. Last
Really
year's,
tough.
it's pretty much GSL Light. And indeed, I agree completely. But he lost in Challenger League, I believe. So, things aren't looking good for him, but he made it to the round of 16, so obviously he's not too much of a bad form.
He hasn't had the best run, the most dominant run to where he is today. Ryung, he went through Marine Lord, great up-and-coming Terran, went through him. He did beat Hyun, which is the one game that stands out, obviously, same matchup. Hyun, number 1 player in the world in the WCS ranking. Then Grubby and Wellmu. The last time we saw Ryung, because it does feel like a long time since we've seen him compete, was April in DreamHack, a long, long time ago now.
Wow.
But Nathaniel, talk to me. What does Ryung need to do to stop soO to get to the finals?
He's got to win more games.
He's got to win this series, Apollo.
Three.
It's a best of 3. He's got to take 2
Someone who
maps.
watches American football, this is the part where I say he needs to sports better if he wants to win the sporting event, because honestly, soO is not a player that shows weakness. Like you look at soO, he's like, yeah, he's the best Zerg. There's no or buts there. Ryung just has to play the series of his life, because I feel I haven't seen soO's ZVT personally.
Yep.
But it's just not. You don't look at soO and say, yeah, Ryung's macro is going to give him an edge. No, he has to be perfect everywhere.
He has to cheese it. Let's face it, guys.
I agree with everything you guys said, but what I like about the situation for Ryung is, so far, the only top-notch Zerg that he faced, the only Korean he faced, was Hyun, who's, by the way, a very good ZVT player.
Yeah.
And, he's been off the grid for a while, but all he has to do is beat soO, and you're right back on that frickin' grid.
That's all you've got to do, right?
So all you got to do. It's the best of 3, so
well, hey, literally all the other GSL champions did that the last, 370 days or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not that difficult, right?
Yeah.
Well, you just got to be a GSL champion.
Walk
no big
in the
deal.
park.
It's just the best of 3. It's just win 2 maps. It's like 2 ladder games.
Yeah.
Just
Piece of cake.
11-11.
It's literally like 2 ladder games.
It's exactly like 2 ladder games.
think
How
so.
close are we for the game? Are we
Game
really
is
close?
loaded. Game is in game.
Game is in game.
Game is in game. Just now.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to hand it over to our 2 commentators, who you may have guessed already. It's going to be Nathaniel the Terran and Moonglade the Zerg, casting soO versus Ryung.
All right. Well, as we said, we're already loaded into the game. This series will kick off on Catalina. And yeah, Ryung has his work cut out for him.
He definitely does. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what Ryung is going to go for in this kind of game here. Is he going to go for that macro game? I really wish I got to see the replays of him against Hyun.
Yeah.
And kind of get an idea of what his style is currently. If he's going the kind of like the MMA approach of high aggression, very, very early Raxes and whatnot, or is he going for more of the, like the mid-game style with the aggressive bio and mines or bio and hellbats? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think when you look at a player like Ryung, he's just been off the radar for so long. Maybe he's got something else he's going to throw in.
Maybe, just maybe.
Yeah, his opponent, though, a red Zerg in the top right, is a very scary Zerg who's, I mean, if you've watched GSL at all in the last year, you have seen him because he's made it to the finals of every single one.
Absolutely.
He plays for SK Telecom. He is soO. And he's just a beast, man. He's a beast.
He is a monster. And in the bottom right, we have the challenger, the dark horse, who has made it to the round of 16, whom we have not seen for a very long time. It is Axiom's Ryung.
Yeah, this has not been Ryung's year. He had good performances in the Acer Team Story Cup of the first couple seasons. That was more so towards last year. A couple solid WCS runs, nothing really big to note. This season, the Axiom boys had actually quite a bit of trouble from Chinese Protoss players. Crank was eliminated by Shana, Ryung eliminated by Moxed in Challenger League. I commentate those matches. Of course, not Terran versus Zerg, but those are the kinds of players that if you haven't heard of those guys, and Ryung has certainly had better results than them, being eliminated by those players kind of shows that he hasn't been in his top form lately. And I'm really interested to see where he takes this series because, unless you do something really out of left field, if soO is the better player, he should just win, right?
He should, for sure. And soO is in such a good place. He's obviously in the top of his game. He's peaking. He's going into the GSL finals, looking really good, taking down one of his biggest rivals in the GSL, Zest, arguably the best player in the world right now. So from here, I mean, it's going to be up to Ryung to show us what he's got. And he is going for that Reaper build early on. No surprise. Catalina, great for this build because of how close the bases are to each other and how there's a massive cliff to jump up onto to scout everything and harass everything.
Yeah, it's still a single Reaper opening, but when you take into consideration how fast the pool was, how fast the Queen comes out, we see players like Snoot do this because they're scared of multiple Reapers. soO, of course, you take this small concession to be safe, and Ryung says, well, I still only open with one Reaper, so actually, I technically have the build order edge as far as that goes. He's got a slightly more normal economic opening.
Yeah, I actually really like the early pool from soO because you get that Queen out early enough, you stop the Reaper, which comes maybe 5-10 seconds earlier than it would on every other map.
Yeah.
So you avoid any sort of drone damage whatsoever. And I mean, sure, you get your second Queen out a little bit slower, your creep spread on your naturals a little bit slower, but you're safe. It's a very, very safe, comfortable build, which I like a lot here.
Yeah, Ryung's going to move a couple Marines out. We see lots of Terrans do this. You're hunting for Overlords, any early Lings that are planted anywhere. At times it can be a bit risky against the pool first, and some players like to send Lings out, but that's what the Reaper does. It allows you to see anything that leaves the Zerg player's base. Now, okay, when we see this, the second gas for Ryung, Moonglade, it could be Hellbats, could be Banshee, the Starport kind of usually asks for that, but he's not building a tech lab with the barracks. What are you feeling here? I think doing something aggressive like this instead of going for a fast third command center build against someone who's better than you is always a good choice.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I think it's interesting because we actually see no production from the Rax either. It's simply pure Hellion and a Starport finishing. So I think it's going to be Hellion Medivac. I'm feeling it right now, considering we did not see a tech lab, and it's going to be a Viking to start things off. Going to start clearing out Overlords.
That's a really good point. It is a Viking first, but you can, of course, as you said, very easy followed up with a Medivac. He can even go for a Reactor and get a quick Armory and do a big Hellbat push.
Yep.
Important to note that soO is going to start up a Roach Warren, of course. They're pretty good versus Hellions. They wreck them, but the not building the Marines immediately out of the barracks, we have seen a lot of Terrans open up with the fast Hellion run by with the 6-7 Marine drop.
Yeah.
So that won't be a play that we see at the start of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like he's going to sit with 4 Hellions and move on from his factory. So very, very interesting. Going into Bio, going into Stim, and not making a Medivac or anything like that. So he's going to stay on, 1 Reaper, 4 Hellions by the looks of things. Or is that actually 2 Hellions?
Yeah, he's got a couple.
No, he's
more
got 4.
coming
He's
out.
got 4. 2 of them in his naturals still.
Yeah, he's got 4 total on the map. Leaving some behind to defend against a potential Zergling run by is never really a bad idea. The starport, by the way, still hasn't done anything beyond building that Viking.
I'm actually already kind of getting nervous for Ryung here because we see 8 roaches coming out, so he could actually go for a great timing here. And I mean, there's nothing
Baneling
really to
Nest.
defend. Yeah.
Baneling Nest. He is getting ready to bring a very aggressive play. I was going to ask you, but I guess I don't need to ask how aggressive soO plays. He's willing to throw builds out like Roach Bane. On this map, it makes things really tricky, especially if Ryung went for a 3rd command center build, and we know that he hasn't, but you can still, with these double engineering bays, put yourself in a very awkward position where your production just too late to stop a push like this.
Yeah,
and now
absolutely.
he sees the roaches coming.
Yeah, he is in a very, very awkward position right now. I mean, his factory doesn't even have the reactor anymore. He can't make mines to defend against this. He's making bio now. He's making 2 bunkers, but I mean, we're going to see a lot of Baneling and Ling come from this as well.
It's going to be tough. The best thing for Ryung is that the Baneling Nest is only just now finishing, so there's no Banelings pre-prepared, which means SCVs can give their lives to repair that wall for a good amount of time. But 18 Banelings. Jeez Louise, Moonglade. This is definitely knocking the door. You can't tell this guy to leave your front lawn. He's going to break his way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually very, very worried for Ryung right now. He does have the bunkers up though, so we'll have to wait and see.
Banelings breaking down 3 at a time, supply blocking Ryung. There's no more production available after this. The first bunker smashed down, second bunker destroyed, third bunker not even going to finish. Marines can't get inside of it. SCV's trying to fight against Zerglings, but I mean, that's not a winning battle, and he still has Banelings in the back. Once this bunker is broken down, there's nothing to stop soO from parading up the ramp of Ryung, and 87 supply to 34. The Terran player is he's gonna drop this map pretty fast, it seems.
Yep, completely dominated by soO. soO just knew exactly what he had to do, and a very, very weird build from Ryung. I just don't understand where he was going with it, because it was just so many switching with his add-ons, and GG, just simply unprepared for that sort of aggression.
Yeah, build orders like this out of Terran players, I see sometimes if you open up with Hellbats or a very big Hellion play, Zergs will say, okay, I can do a Roach build. Sometimes you don't quite get the Banelings in there. But against the 2-base Terran, I generally don't get that vibe that that's what the Roach Baneling builds are able to punish.
It shouldn't punish that. It actually shouldn't punish that. That's actually really weird that it worked out so well for soO, because obviously 2-base aggression should have enough bio, should have some sort of AoE like mines or tank or anything like that to kind of help deal with this. But I really feel like Ryung was going back and forth with his build to a point where it didn't really make sense. Making a starport, going for 1 Viking and then not using it again?
Yeah, I think like if you build a medevac, that Zerg force doesn't have any anti-air. So you can, if you go and bring some pressure, if you can hold the roaches at your opponent's base.
If you make a Banshee, you're in such a good position to stop this sort of aggression.
It doesn't need to completely kill the Zerg. It just needs to buy yourself a little bit of time. It needs to distract the Zerg. And then even the way that the wall was set up, he was able to hit 3 supply depots at once. And then that's it. You're not building anything else.
Yeah.
You're completely blocked in your production.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a good spot to be in.
Not at all.
Tough first game for
Very
Ryung.
awkward game, first game. On Catalina. And I mean, next map, going to be Overgrowth. Definitely a much more standard map that we see in just about every single matchup.
I mean, Catalina gets vetoed a lot, right? We can just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
We have seen, I think, in this tournament, some very interesting veto sets. I've seen Foxtrot Labs has actually been played a surprising amount. Deadwing's been getting played.
A little weird. A little strange. It's every player has their own sort of preferences. They like their styles on certain maps, which is perfectly fine. But I definitely feel like Ryung had a better shot on Catalina than he does on Overgrowth.
Yeah, Catalina definitely a Terran favorite map for that early mid game. But until the Zerg gets a lot of mutas, there's no way the Zerg can use all that airspace, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, definitely not going to get any easier for our Terran players. We're loaded into game number 2. Actually, we have a super quick pause.
Game number 2.
Let's keep telling you guys about how great soO is.
Apparently it's the wrong map. Apparently it's meant to be King Sejong.
Oh, well,
that's a little bit awkward here. But yeah,
tell me more about soO. Honestly,
I could talk about soO all day, man.
I've been, unfortunately for me, Ryung being eliminated from WCS, even though I commentate WCS America, I don't get to see his play that much. But you've been able to see quite a bit of soO's games. Do you think for the mid-game stage, does he like roaches a lot, or is it just like a one-off build? Is he more likely to play Ling Bling?
He's very much more of a Ling Bling muter sort of player. During the mid game, he gets even scarier than he is like early game and late game. His macro is actually like unparalleled to anyone else. He has the best macro, which makes him one of the most consistent Zergs. And every single game, I'm just in awe about how great he plays. Like what comes to mind, especially in his latest games, was against Zest in his EVP. He has such great production, such great macros, such great injects, that he's like killing Zest with Ling and Muter, like early on, like just fighting the army head on in a way that no one else does. Yeah, and it attests to how good he is. And the same thing with his Ling Bling Muter and creep spread and everything like that. It all comes together so well with him. He's such a consistent Zerg player.
And he's a very strong Zerg player, I feel, mentally. When you look at it, in case you guys didn't see it, we made the joke, spoiler alert, but soO is in the finals of the GSL for this season. I watched the match that he played versus Zest, and it was like, Zest is up 3-1. I'm like, man, I really don't think that this, most players, when you're under that much pressure, it's like, that's it. You lose one map, you need to win 3 in a row. It's tough, but soO, he's got it. He's got it all together upstairs.
He's been in that situation a lot of times already, being his I guess 4th semifinals to get to the grand finals of GSL. I mean, if he doesn't have it down pat now, like he's in trouble. He might constantly be that calm.
If you're not already used to playing on the highest stage and you get nervous at the round of 16, you probably, something else must be wrong for you that day.
Absolutely, and he has the experience. He has such great ability, and he is the best Zerg player in the world. There's no doubting it. He's definitely one of the best players in the world. If you can get to the grand finals of GSL 4 times in a row, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Just overcoming that last hurdle is the next step. And maybe this time we'll have to wait and see. But
getting that monkey off your back, getting the championship. Well, we are loaded into the actual map for game number 2, King Sejong Station. And Ryung, as we said, he still has his work cut out for him.
Absolutely.
It's been really interesting to think about the way that Ryung's year is gone, because when I think about his year, nothing really pops up for me.
Absolutely not. Like I feel like he is actually a player that has dropped off the map completely for like the last 6 months. At least. Like, I have not heard this name in a very, very long time, and I try and watch as much StarCraft as humanly possible. And yeah, he used to be such an amazing player. Like, he was a great, great player in the first few years here, but these things, sometimes players drop off for a while. Yeah. It's good to see him back.
His teammate Hart has had some really good Terran versus Zerg shown in WCS. Maybe he's been taking some pointers from him. Maybe if we get into a bit of a longer game, he's gotten the advice and the practice with his teammate to really excel here. But this guy, our Zerg in the top left, has really just been a real force to be reckoned with, as my good friend Roddy would say back home.
Yep.
He's not really dropped many maps this year. He's, of course, SK Telecom Team 1 soO. He's not the Zerg player I wanted to play against. He's a scary guy.
He is he is the scariest guy in this round of 16 for sure. And his challenger at the bottom right here, down a game, getting cheesed out pretty badly after a bit of a wonky 2-base build. It is Axiom's Ryung. Going for that gas once again, going for that Reaper once again.
Yeah, so can we agree, this is a really, really aggressive opening from soO, by the way. The 14 gas into 14 pool.
Yeah.
His speed will finish at like 5 minutes and 10 seconds, something like that?
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very early. It's going to be interesting to see what his follow-up is from here. I'm very, very wondering what kind of build he was expecting from Ryung, and if we're going to see some sort of like hyper-aggression from soO, it's kind of interesting. This is a build we just very, very rarely see these days.
Yeah, Ryung didn't SCV scout the last game.
He is this time, though.
Yeah, this is really important because I think if Ryung doesn't see this and he builds his command center on the low ground, speedlings flood, the command center gets canceled, maybe he gets into the main and just wins the game straight up. So
absolutely,
the information in this instance is really important. And I also think on this map, it's where we generally see more people do like the 13 or 14 pool, just to, even without gas, just try to get a few links to cancel that command center.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we did see the drones go off gas, so it's not going to be any sort of shenanigans past this, just a very, very fast speedlings. And the SCV is going to scout this, and he's going to kind of get an idea of what kind of build it was.
And he doesn't quite see the gas, but when you go to your Zerg players, you go to the Zerg's base and you see that he doesn't have a hatchery, you're immediately like, okay, well, let's not take any unnecessary risks this game.
Yeah, so he puts that CC on the high ground. Very, very smartly done from Ryung. Not taking any chances here, and unfortunately for soO, I don't think it's going to come to fruition at all.
Zerglings around in an interesting way. He doesn't want them to be seen by the Reaper, of course, since without speed, that Reaper can theoretically kill all of them.
Yeah, when they're this far out in the map, he's definitely killing every single one.
Yeah, as we move towards the later stage of this early game, because we haven't seen a flood of speedlings get built just yet, and maybe it's just purely defensive. Can we agree on that last game? Like, Ryung had a lot more he could have done with that starport, I feel.
He had to have made that starport a lot more useful.
I think a medevac or a Banshee is kind of a must.
One or the other. I mean, like, at the very least, like, a medevac's going to keep soO on his side of the map, trying to defend against Hellion Drop and whatnot.
Yeah.
That is probably one way to kind of deal with his aggression, like force the Zerg back. But instead of absolutely going for nothing, making a Viking and then not using it, it's spelt his doom. You know, there's simply nothing you can do against that if you're not going to use your tech.
Yeah, it's an awkward spot to be in. The Reaper's going to get caught. That's the power of the early speed, of course. Doesn't come cheap. You delay your expansion, your workers, just a little bit in that extra larva production. But Ryung's follow-up still seems relatively standard. He's going for, so far, the same exact setup as the last map with the second gas and the starport. Well, let's see if he does anything more with the starport. As I really, with the tech lab going up now, he could still swap it. We could see a Banshee, and I would like that more than just a Viking.
Yeah, I would actually really like a Banshee in this sort of situation. I mean, considering what soO did last game.
And the map's great for it, too.
The map is absolutely great for Banshee aggression. So, I mean, the Tech Lab and the Starport kind of finishing at the same time. And it looks like it is going to be Banshee. Thank goodness for that.
I really like this choice because he can still build the Viking immediately if he wants.
If he wants to.
Yeah, but he's got options at this point. If you don't have that Tech Lab, you can get the Medevac out, but the Banshee will always give you fighting power versus any type of early Zerg aggression. Because Banelings, Roaches, and Zerglings, as we know, they cannot climb on top of each other to chase that Banshee in the sky.
If only they could. Maybe in Legacy of the Void.
They'll be able to climb on top of each other, use teamwork.
I think that should be an upgrade to Tier 2, but we'll wait and see. I'll be talking to Blizzard later today about that. We do see that third base going up in a timely fashion, almost finished by the 7-minute mark. And yeah, soO just going for that steady mid-game. You know, no roach aggression this time so far.
It looks like we're going to see the mega macro monster of soO. You said he's pretty much untouchable as far as the production goes amongst Zerg players. Is there anything else of note? He does get a Ling in here to kind of see what's going on here. I don't think there's too much for him to spot, though.
Yeah, he didn't see too much. I mean, he saw the factory, he saw the 4 Hellions. He's like, okay, I kind of have an idea of what you got. He's got a lot of queens out, so he can kind of deal with a Banshee early on. But I mean, once Cloak is finished, he will take some damage here.
Yeah, he's going up to 6 queens, so it'll give him a lot of defensive anti-air against the Banshee, and of course, a creep spread later on. He's the lair before any evolution chambers. Is this something that soO does often? Is there something that when you look at his setup right now, this screams soO? You can tell that it's his style.
Well, I like the mass queens for starters. That's kind of definitely soO's sort of style. It's very great against Banshee play. It's great against Hellbat play. It's kind of just good defense in general without spending much money on gas. Going straight into Tier 2.
Yeah.
Going for fast Mutalisks, which I'm sure we're going to see next. And obviously he's going to get fast Overseers too, so he can kind of minimize the damage a little bit. He hasn't taken too much by the looks of things.
It's a surprising amount, I think, that the Banshee's able to get done. Like 5 drone kills when you're up 55 to 37. You're still, he's still getting away with building a lot of drones because he's building
still
queens.
Making nothing but drones, man. Yeah.
You don't need to spend the larva on anything if you have queens to defend everything else. So
it's a very, very cost-efficient way to kind of build your defenses up while you're droning.
Yeah. He goes for the Spire and the Baneling Nest before he actually starts his upgrades on the evolution chambers, though. And this gives a nice, it looks about a minute lead in the upgrades for Ryung if he decides to get aggressive anytime soon. And you know what? This setup, I feel like, I feel like last game, you normally would have gotten a 3rd command center if you don't die to that push, but he's gone straight up to 5 barracks, Moonblade. This is not normal for Terran against Zerg.
Yeah, he's going for a very, very aggressive 2-base sort of style here. So it's going to be really up to soO to identify what he's up against. And he's going to have Banelings out in time. He's going to have the creep spread between his 3rd, his natural, and a little bit further out, maybe near that 4th base. He's essentially got to see this coming, or he can die to it. Yeah. He has that Baneling Nest out in a timely manner. But, he's still lacking a bit of Zerglings here, and we see a lot of bio already, and 2 Medivacs on the way.
He has quite a bit of gas. I feel like this is one of those builds that if you go Mutas into this, it can leave you extra vulnerable. With all the gas that he has, just Banelings, if you can clean up 1 or 2 pushes, that 3rd base economy really helps. For any Zerg players out there watching, when you see that Terran doesn't have the 3rd base like this, is it all about getting the creep spread and the Banelings, or is there something else that soO needs to keep his eyes open for?
You essentially just have to weather the storm. You've already got the economy lead here. If he knows it's 2 base, he's like, okay, I just need to hold on here because it's going to come. It has to come, otherwise Ryung is in a horrible position.
Yeah. The way this army is spread out by the 3rd, by the way, is so good too because
he's pretending.
Is soO actually aware that it's a 2-base setup? He never saw.
Well, the way it is now, I feel like Ryung, the longer he takes, the worse it's going to be. We already see a lot of Zerglings out. We see Baneling speed nearly done. We see Mutas are out too, and the creep spread is great. same time, I mean, it's still going to have to be up to Ryung to find the damage here.
Yeah, and here Ryung comes. He does not have... Yeah, he doesn't have an armory.
So it's going to get picked
no
up.
Hellbats. It's going to kill an Overlord or two. He's got a lot of supply free, though. The number of Banelings is biggest thing, I think, here. Baneling speed's almost done, but he only has 5 of them on the map.
Yeah, he's going to be very careful here. That's a huge engagement for Ryung here. Not enough Banelings, and he could actually run into the Baneling production and wipe out everything.
Yeah, the upgrades are 1-1 for both players, but there's so much bile here. Starting up these Banelings in front of the Terran army, not where you want to be. The Baneling speed is done, but the Marauders up front soak up all the hits. He cleans up the Heli, and sure, these Banelings need to kill everything. Ryung's still on creep, though.
He is on creep, and he is taking a lot of damage here, but it's still enough fire. And soO in a bit of trouble. Very, very badly caught off guard.
Opening with the Mutalisk before the Banelings. They're not, Mutas are good, but they're good against a 3-base Terran that you can poke at and keep in their base. Ryung was never thinking about sitting at home. He still has to make a little bit more work here because he still he hasn't killed any economy yet.
Oh, that's very, very true. And, I mean, even though soO is pretty badly supply capped, he has wiped out the army here.
I love this position for, like, if now that soO has taken out the first wave, now that he doesn't have that big core of Terran units of the Marines to all fight together, the Mutas become relevant again. He can pick off the Medivacs, and that's it. soO, very clean 2-0 over Ryung.
Very, very swift 2-0.
Yeah.
That's actually very, very surprising. But, I mean, soO held on as he had to against that kind of very old school build. You know, that's an old build right there. That's a Ryung from like 2011 build.
Yeah, I think it kind of shows a little bit of Ryung understanding that soO is the kind of guy that he should not be able to beat. And Ryung in the first game, it seemed like he had a little bit of nerves there. Not everything was together. I liked his opening in the second game, but...
Much more cleaner for sure, and actually made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's a really old build, a very aggressive build, and it can do work, especially in the old meta. But, I mean... He almost caught soO. Give him credit for that. I mean, he almost did.
If soO builds his Baneling nest a minute later, if he gets his upgrades before he gets the lair, for example, he doesn't have Baneling speed.
Yeah.
These are the things that can kind of turn things in your favor. But soO, the 4-time GSL finalist, is now moving on. And are we surprised now?
Not one single bit. You know what? soO is in great condition. He's looking great so far. And I think he's going to go very, very deep, if not win this tournament, in my personal opinion, as a huge soO fan.
I'm really excited to see him move on. That's our first match of the round of 16 here at the DreamHack Open Stockholm. We are going to go to a short commercial break, and then we'll be back with our next series. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. Hope you've been having a nice day, and we'll be right back.